Yes. And the thing is, they might not take up another book of yours because they know that last time they were disappointed in the theme, or you know what I mean? Like,
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Twisted Word Show. Mariana and I are back again, and this time we are going to discuss, first of all, Happy New Year to everybody.
hello, everybody, Happy New Year.
Yes, and so this video is going to be about how to start your story. And Mariana, help us get started.
Yes, so Yash and I were discussing various ways how you can make the start of your story interesting to capture and captivate your reader from the first page. Because if you don't, then they might not turn over to the second page. If the action starts too late in your story, you might lose them before they get there. So,
Exactly.
Yash, do you want to mention the first point that we talked about?
Yes, absolutely. So the first point is that you can begin with a hook. And you can do this by four ways, that is, action, intrigue, conflict, and having a unique voice. These are the points that will allow you to have that kind of opening that will catch the reader's attention and help you keep going. So, what if you start with a action-packed scene that really catches the attention of the reader and draws them inside and makes them want to follow through and see what happens at the end of that action? And intrigue. So you can start with a question, start with something that asks the reader or makes the reader curious about, okay, why that and why not this, or why is this happening and how it's going to turn out. Mariana, what about the next points?
So, the next point is to set the scene and the tone of your story right from the start. Because when you pick up a book, you want to see immediately what it's about because it might not be a genre you're interested in or enjoy reading. So make sure that the beginning of the book already tells the reader what it is about, or at least set a tone so that the reader
Exactly.
know what they're in for.
Yes, because if you start a different kind of story with an approach that is totally not related to that kind of story, then the reader's expectations will totally be lost in that.
Yes. And the thing is, they might not take up another book of yours because they know that last time they were disappointed in the theme, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, um, I remember, although it happens from time to time that you're pleasantly surprised, even if you did go another direction, but I don't recommend it because people can get quite upset if they expected one thing
Yes.
and it's not what they expected. Yeah.
You can also understand this by setting by telling by being yourself a reader and think about reading a book and then expecting something but getting something totally different and you weren't even interested in that. So there's that.
Yes.
And the next point is to introduce the protagonist first. This is another way you can start your story. So, protagonist or the main character of your story is essentially, obviously, the main thing that the story is going to contain. And you can start the story with the protagonist by taking a trait that defines them and building on that, because that way the
Yes.
reader will not only know what the character is like, and also the reader will also be able to obviously follow through the story and see how that character reacts to certain situations and how their internal thoughts also play out.
Yes. And to add to that, it also you can follow how the protagonist changes and grows throughout the story if you know what he's like in the
In
beginning.
the beginning, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. However, make sure to not really info dump the reader on telling them
Yeah.
the whole background of the character and everything. Make sure to keep it interesting, and the flow is also essential.
Yes, and we'll get to that to a point that actually it actually links with this about dialogue, using dialogue to introduce your protagonist and introduce the way he thinks. But we'll get to that.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So
What
our
about
next point is sorry
yes?
is to create a sense of motion. So again, start with action, and you know, you can also have uh, consequent events because of the first action. Um, for example, if I take your book, Do Not Kill a Spider, or your story that you're busy with, something happens causing your protagonist to agree to something else, which as another effect,
Yes.
and that has another effect. Same with my alien adventure story. They have one mishap after the other, but it goes from one event causing another event, which causes, and it keeps you captivated, and you want to see where is this going and what's going to happen next.
Exactly. Keeps the reader in the loop and keeps them want to follow the story.
Yes,
And the next point that Mariana mentioned previously, to start with the dialogue. You can start with the dialogue, and the dialogue can be a reflection of what kind of a character the main protagonist is, and also give you an idea of how they communicate with each other, how their relationships are with other characters, and how everything is going to turn out.
yes, exactly. You can learn a lot more from your protagonist and the other characters as well by the things they say and how they say it. And,
Exactly.
you pick up a lot of character traits. And it almost helps you understand their decision making throughout the story using dialogue.
Yes, and also the fact that you can introduce the different kind of conflict between characters using dialogue. That is how I introduce conflict between the two main characters of my story, Do Not Kill a Spider, in the starting
Yeah,
itself. So there's so that can also be an excellent way to start your story with dialogue, so that you can introduce the main conflict, you can introduce your main characters, also maintain the setting and the mood, and set readers'
yes,
expectations right away.
yes.
Now, Mariana, can you tell us about some common pitfalls to avoid when starting a story? Because we don't want our writers to mess up their starting of the story.
Yes, I think the biggest problem is cliches. People don't like that. Try something new, try something interesting. And
Exactly.
stereotypes also don't work or don't work well. I guess there are times where it might, but try to stay away from that. Rather try something original, not too abstract, so that the reader doesn't get confused with what you're trying to say, but try something new. Yeah, just be original.
Absolutely. And also to what we previously mentioned, don't explain too much, don't go into the info dump, don't go about telling the entire
Yes,
history of the character, their family and everything, unless it is absolutely essential for the reader to know
yes.
that. Yes.
Yeah, or to
And
understand what's going on. Yeah,
exactly. And also, it is important to just experiment with your story, to get feedback from others, to read it out aloud yourself, and to see how, as a reader, you would like your story if you didn't know nothing about it and you just started reading the first page itself. Because at the end of the day, it is the readers who know little to nothing about your story. Those are the people who are going to read your story. And the very first page, the very first line is going to decide whether they are going to continue or not.
yes. And then there's another way you can enhance the beginning of your story is to again experiment with something new, something different. With the structure. Don't go for the stereotypes and the cliches, but rather maybe start your story with a unique beginning, like your protagonist has a flashback of something that happened. For
Yes.
example, they get to a certain house and suddenly this feels familiar, or she recognizes something but she doesn't know why. So immediately your reader would want to know, but why does she recognize the house if she can't even remember why? So
Yes.
um, or start, like we said earlier, in the middle of the action. Um, you know, you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to give a long backstory before um, they get to a point of action or a fight or an argument, um, you can use dialogue again to explain what the action is about, for example. Um,
Yes.
yeah, do you have other examples that you can think of?
Another thing that I really like to do, not really to do, but maybe to read or to discover, is when writers actually give a little bit of a hint as to what is going to happen in the story. For
Yes,
example, it could be a
yes,
dialogue, it
yes,
could be an
yes.
action, it could be a character, something happening to a particular character in the beginning, and then the story just starts from totally somewhere else than that thing. And then it continues, and then as it continues, or towards the end of it or in the middle of it, that particular scene which we saw at first comes in. So that's going to give you a sense of like a deja vu and a like, I knew this. Oh my God, this just happened and this is why it happened. So that kind of a feeling, if you can deliver that, that is excellent.
I recently read a book which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I read the first chapter and I immediately thought, this is not for me. I'm not going to read this book. But, I promised to read it, so I did. and I don't regret it. Sometimes it's good to be forced to do something. So, and I couldn't understand from that first chapter how it fit into the rest of the story. But then when I got to, I think, three quarters in, that suddenly made perfect sense. So, and I
Yes.
was like, of course, that's why all of this happened in the beginning. That made me think this is a horror story. It wasn't horror; it was brilliant. But um, but that's again where I said sometimes it works if you change what the theme of your story is supposed to be. It looks different to the first chapter. So I think he took a chance there, but it
Yes.
worked.
Seems like we need to ask our readers to give us writers a little bit of a chance and read through the rest of the book without judging
You
the book
know?
by the
Yeah.
first page itself. Yes,
Yeah, and don't go straight to the back page. That's cheating.
exactly.
Don't do that.
Absolutely. So, thank you everybody for sticking with us till the end. We hope we have been able to share helpful information and hope you liked this episode of the Twisted Word Show. See you all again and bye bye.
Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you.